Welcome everyone to Building Materials Marketing Unboxed. You are watching Season 2, Episode 14, and the title of today's show is The Role of Construction Job Site Visits for Successful Building Product Sales. My name is Will Smith. I am your host, and today we have Carolina Albano, the Vice President of StoCorp, with us, and I'm so excited for this episode, and I hope you are too, because we will literally get boots on the ground, tactical, actionable advice that you can implement, well, this afternoon after this show, if you wanted to. So let's get right to it. Let's learn a little bit more about Carolina and then welcome her onto the show. So she records music in her home studio with her two sons. Now, I've said this before because a lot of our guests are musicians. So now we have a home production studio. So I think the first building materials album should be coming out soon. So Carolina, I'm definitely going to be tapping you to make sure that we record this album with all of our fantastic guests that have been on the show, because most of them are musicians in some way, shape, or form. So she loves Formula One racing, and that actually, spoiler alert, that's going to be my first question for her, because frankly, I know nothing about Formula One racing except what I learned from, I think, the second iteration of the Cars franchise from Disney. So definitely going to ask her about that. She was in Edmonton, Alberta on the day that it was registered as the coldest place in the world. Hopefully she wasn't part of the Polar Bear Club that day, but let me tell you that that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. She is the host, and of course, I already like her. She's a podcast host. We talked a little bit before the show, but she is the host of Build Perspectives, the Build Perspectives podcast. As I mentioned, she's the vice president at StoCorp and the Rainscreen division. Please welcome to the show, Carolina. Welcome, Carolina. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Will. That was a great intro. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, it's all the information that you gave us. I can't wait to start recording that album for our building materials musicians. Something, I don't know.
Yeah.
We gotta work on that title there.
Yeah, great
So
collab.
tell me a little bit about, as you heard, I know nothing about Formula One racing. So educate me, educate the audience. Tell us a little bit about Formula One racing. How'd you get into it? And who is your favorite Formula One driver and why?
All right. Well, that's a loaded question. So Formula One racing was part of my childhood. I grew up in Venezuela. So it's Formula One racing is kind of like soccer was for many years. It's popular everywhere except here in the US. So I just continued to follow it after we moved here. And of course, now it's very, very popular in the US. So I'm very happy that we have more and more fans these days. But the reason I fell in love with Formula One racing is because they allowed racing in the rain. So it's the only motorsport where you can actually race in the rain, and people just develop talent around that. So that was kind of why I was like, oh yeah, that's the most, the coolest of all the motorsports. And my favorite driver of the current season, that's a really hard question. Probably Max Verstappen, he's a Dutch driver who races for Red Bull. Okay. But that's a tough question to answer. I love Sebastian Vettel. He's still in the game. He races same as Lance Stroll and Aston Martin, but he hasn't been doing as well as he used to. He's a champ, always a champ, but yeah. And retired drivers. I mean, we could spend the whole show talking about this. I don't think you want to do that.
Talking about Formula One. Tune in next time for the brand new podcast brought to you by Carolina, Formula One Racing Podcast. I'm sure there's plenty out there to begin with, but where can I, if I wanted to get into this, where can I watch Formula One racing?
Well, I would definitely download the F1 app because it gives you the calendar of the races that are coming up. And I have YouTube TV, so it's on ESPN. It used to be really hard to find these races here, and you had to pay extra for like the racing channel, et cetera. But now it's there. It's on public TV. You can watch it every Sunday.
Well, hopefully you can get some sort of kickback for the advertising there,
I wish.
right? Maybe
I
some
wish.
swag, a free hat or something, something nice
Yeah.
to.
I should have worn my one of my jerseys
There you
for the
go.
show.
I would
Mm.
have really appreciated that. So next time you're on the show, I already know what I'm going to ask you for. So the expectation has been set. So let's talk a little bit about what you were doing. Tell me about how'd you get into construction job site visits, and how did this all come about for you? Give us a little history.
So I started out in the building materials industry a long, long time ago, and my first job in the industry was as a technical trainer for installers of a product. Right, so the product that this company used to sell was not necessarily complicated, but it was new to the industry. So it's like installers weren't familiar with it. So we developed a training program for these installers so that they would be familiar with it, and then they would then promote it and help us sell it. So I went throughout the country and throughout the US and Canada training a bunch of installers all over at distributors. At the time we were going through two-step distribution, and then that sort of morphed and evolved, and over the years my role increased, but I was always going to job sites to take a look at technical issues, or something came up, or pre-construction meetings, or just as a way to kind of maintain the peace between the architect and the general contractor and the installer and the owner or the owner's rep. So there was always a reason to be at a job site where my job was concerned, but I wasn't in sales at the time. That's how I got started going to job sites.
Carolina Albano, part-time peacekeeper. I love it. That's
Yeah, seriously, mediating is part of the job for sure.
absolutely. It sure sounds like it. So let's just give a little context for our audience here. What is a construction job site visit?
A job site visit can take on many different, I guess, faces, but basically you're just going into a job site and hopefully you have a reason to be there, or you get kicked out most of the time, especially these days. So yeah, it's just going to a site where construction is happening.
So how would you describe an overall good job site, or what would be a good goal to have if you're visiting a job site? So you mentioned that there had to be a reason to be there. What are some of those reasons?
Well, it depends on who you are and what your job is. So, if we put on this building product manufacturer sales rep hat, your interest is in selling your material, right? And making sure people know you exist, putting a face to the name, saying, "Hey, I'm here for you, and these are my products. This is how I can help." So if you're a salesperson, you would want to go to a job site to get to know the people using your product, how they're using your product, get to know people who could consider using your product in the future. And to me, it depends on the goal, and it depends on where you are and who you want to talk to. But for the most part, going to a job site, interacting with every single player will get you more sales.
So, would you say the goal, I'm sorry, not the goal, but would you say that job site visits are kind of for everybody, depending upon almost every level of the company? I'm sure there's some value that can be derived from a visit on the ground, seeing how the product is being used, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in sales, whether you're in leadership. Tell me a little bit about what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I love that you brought up marketing, because one of the issues that we run into, those of us who've been in the industry a long time and who are not in marketing, we run into the people writing our content and writing copy and setting up our website. They don't really understand how the product truly works and how it's used in the real world, right? Like, they've seen samples, they've held them, they've seen how things come together, but in the end, like, you're not there seeing how it's being used, how, like, the problems that installers could have with it, the little things that come up, the little complaints, or the great things, right? Like the great feedback that you could then use as copy. Like, my product does this. And you could literally take it from the horse's mouth as they're using it. So, yeah, installers and general contractors would hate us because they don't like visitors and they would hate that we're talking about this. But from the perspective of the building product manufacturer, I agree with you. Every level would benefit from going to job sites.
So how do you bridge that gap? How do you not just drop in and just say, "Hey, I'm from marketing. I'm new, and I want to make a name for myself." And Carolina, I heard on this podcast said that I should just go to these job site visits. I'm pretty sure that this person would get kicked out fairly quickly. So how do you get yourself into that? How do you help yourself get to those job sites without getting kicked off the property?
Well, I would say if it's your first time going, go with somebody. Just be escorted. Somebody from sales, somebody who from the technical team, somebody who already has a relationship with the people you're going to see, or start building a relationship with your top installer, your top GC, somebody that's already there that can then escort you and show you around.
So the bring a friend approach, go with a buddy. So the buddy system, huh?
The buddy system, yeah,
Always
like,
good.
oh, yeah, oh, I brought Michelle from marketing and she's going to be learning with us today, and that just, it helps. Like once you're there, it's very friendly. I can count in one hand the number of unfriendly encounters that I've had at job sites, uh, directed personally at me. So like they don't love visitors because they create liability. So you do have to inform yourself on safety measures. You have to wear your PPE. You have to know, like, don't be clueless. And there are ways to know, and there are ways to know like what to do. But I'd recommend going with someone if it's your first time.
I had heard on another podcast that you were on, so don't show up in your suit. Show up so that you almost seem like you're like you belong there, rather than wearing your newly shined shoes and your brand new suit. Dress for the occasion. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it depends on what you want to get out of the visit. Like I have seen, there's been times when you want to dress up and you want to look like the boss, and then if you're there to lay down the law and you're there to be looked up to, then I'd say that's a time for you to dress up. But 9 times out of 10, you catch more flies with honey. So if you're more approachable and more if you look more open by dressing down slightly, then it's easier to get what you want.
Perfect. So, how many building product brands do you think currently only send a contact out to a job site for damage control reasons? How many do you think are out there right now?
Oh, it's probably 90%. It's the vast majority. Very few people are proactively going to job sites.
And so, what are your thoughts there? Is this the best approach?
Well, I mean, I can understand why it's the vast majority that's not promoting this because again, it presents liability on both sides. If you have a company representative at a job site and something goes wrong with the install, then it could get back to the manufacturer. It could say, well, your person was on site and they didn't say anything about my install. So why aren't you covering my warranty, for example? So it can present liability. So you have to be very intelligent about how you go about it. You have to train your people before you're sending them blindly out to a job site. There are very specific things that you need to know, specific terminology, specific things never to say and never to do, and never to send after the fact. So I think for that reason, I think that's one of the reasons why people shy away from sending their folks to job sites.
So, can you give me, so you mentioned a few things there. Can you give me almost a list of some common mistakes to avoid when visiting a job site?
Well, number one is obviously not bringing your own PPE or not dressing well. So, like, if you're a woman, don't show up in heels, or sandals, open toe shoes. Uh, so, definitely wearing the right stuff. Long sleeves are preferred because your clothes can get snagged. So, wearing the right clothes and having, the right equipment is important. Um, never approve an installation. So if you're there to watch your product be installed, and the customer asks you, "Oh, am I doing it right?" I would not commit to an answer. I would say, "Well, it looks good, but I mean, I haven't been here the whole time that you've been installing, so I can't really certify your installation. But what you're doing seems to look good. I don't know. Just like, don't ever say, 'This is good. I approve this installation,' especially if there are other people present." What else? That's like the number one never to do. Uh, don't criticize other products if you can avoid it. So a lot of times you can flip your your product from other products that are being considered, especially if you're going for like a mock wall or like a mock-up pre-construction visit. There are multiple materials that are sort of being considered being installed side by side. And as salespeople, we have the temptation to make the others look bad and highlight ours. But if you can finesse it, you can make yourself look good without putting others down. Then you'll actually look better, and you'll get the sale. The fact that you're there and the competitors are not there is already putting you at an advantage. So don't trash the competitors. Just talk about your product and highlight, answer questions, be resourceful, and that's going to get you further than if you're just trashing what's there.
Yeah, that temptation is always there, especially for sales. Oh, it's almost part of the training, like we're superior in this way, this way, this way, and this way. So I love the phrase that you used. If you can finesse it, you can make yourself look good as well as your product look good. And in the long run, you don't come across as just, someone that's there to dog the competition. So, and I do like the fact that you brought up presence, the fact that you are there and the competitor's not. That speaks volumes in and of itself. Great advice. I love that list. That's fantastic. For those of you that are listening, of course, we convert this into a podcast. You can watch it again on YouTube. Enjoy the entire experience. But this in particular, what Carolina just mentioned, I call a rewind moment. Go back and listen to that again. So we talked about, next question, we talked about how marketing can really benefit from a job site visit. So how can we improve collaboration? Let's talk beyond marketing and sales. Let's talk about product development, customer service. How do they factor in, and how can we maybe improve collaboration due to these job site visits?
Definitely communication between the departments. So regular communication with people who are talking to the end user. So if it's customer service who receives a call, a complaint from the field, that definitely wants to make it over to the technical team and to the marketing team. The technical team can take that feedback into developing new products, or making tweaks to existing products, or even retiring existing products. Regular meetings, I would say, getting together and sharing feedback. On the marketing side of things, marketing can initiate, and I call it idea extraction campaigns. So getting the customer service people and the salespeople involved with idea extraction from people in the field. So marketing can develop a list of questions that they share with the sales team, or share with the customer service team, and that they can then kind of take to the field, and they talk to their people that they deal with, right? Sales deals with A&D, for example, or owners or developers, and customer service deals with the end user, applicator, installer. And then all of that feedback can then just be culled and studied and analyzed by the marketing team. And that a lot of ideas can come from that. I've seen that be very successful.
I love that idea extraction campaign. Okay, so I'm a building material manufacturer. I'm listening to this podcast. I love that, but I need a little more information. Do you have do you have a podcast episode where you talk about this a little bit more? Is there more? Do you have like a breakdown and a blog post on how to really successfully do this? Because create, idea extraction campaign, man, that's good stuff. Where can I find out more?
All right. Well, on Build Perspectives, we did a podcast on what we call the ICA, the Ideal Customer Avatar. And I think the first step is you you develop an ideal customer avatar. And in the building industry, there are 5 main ones. And we do have a podcast episode on Build Perspectives where we kind of highlight those top 5 and what their attributes are. Idea extraction to me, the way that I'm kind of spelling it out is the same kind of questions that you would ask an ideal customer avatar as you're developing that dossier, if you will. So, what keeps you up at night? What's a dream solution for a problem that you have? Those kinds of questions, just getting to like, and I'm being super high level here, but the list would sort of build on itself, and you start out pretty high level and fluffy, and then you get deeper and deeper and deeper into the problem until you get to that great nugget of information. And you have to do that with a lot of different people at different levels so that you can actually get a full understanding of what's going on, because and that's why we called our podcast Build Perspectives, because there are many different perspectives. So what seems great to the installer is not great for the GC, or it's not great for the developer, and it's impossible to be made because the manufacturer is not going to make any money on it, right? So there are different perspectives. And so when you gather information from all the different sources, you can kind of come up with that leapfrog product that no one really knew that they needed or wanted, but it's like the perfect solution.
I don't know anyone else who's watching right now, but I do have to say, you can see the energy. You can sense the energy out of that answer alone. You can tell that this is your sweet spot. This is where you really like to live. This is where you like to help building material manufacturers. So I'm a building manufacturer, materials manufacturer. I'm listening to this podcast and I'm like, I am all in. Let's say I'm all in on job site visits. I want to do this. I'm going to send everybody out next week. But the CEO in me says, wait a minute, how am I supposed to measure this? How am I, if I can't measure it, I can't manage it. So how can a company measure the effectiveness of job site visits?
I would treat job site visits like any other sales visit. So most BPMs reps have a list of activities they have to do, right? Like you have to do 12 to 15 presentations, 50 calls, prospecting calls a week, or whatever it is. So I would make job site visits part of those activities. And the people you call on, and it depends on the product that you sell, right? Like if you're selling more of a commoditized product, job site visits are going to pay off even better than if you're an A&D, if you're a specified product. But I will tell you that during the pandemic, I was selling an A&D specified product, but I was able to meet and exceed my numbers because I was going to job site visits. And as I was saying earlier, you're the only person at the job site. They're going to flip. If you have a material that is comparable to others, you're going to convert those specs to you at the last minute because you're there, you're answering the question, you're solving the problem. They're already considering you. You provide them with lead time, you provide them with answers. If you're there at the right moment, you can actually grow your specified sales too. So as far as measuring the effect, I mean, you can start adding them to your list of activities, your sales activities, and see what it does to your sales. I saw that the direct effect that it had on my sales, just because last year architect offices were closed. So my job site visits were my visits. That was my activities other than virtual presentations.
Very interesting. So rather than just jumping in and saying, okay, we're doing job site visits now, really formalize the structure and really build out how you want to accomplish this and make it, formalize it, make it a standard. Would you say that's right?
Yes. And like I was saying earlier, you've got to have your rules of engagement in place and train your people before they go to job sites.
So it's more than just, hey, go out there tomorrow. Here's the address. Catch you later.
Yes. I mean, I would not recommend that to 99.9% of the people out there.
I mean,
every part of the country is different. So it also depends on where you are.
So really put some thought into it. Don't just say we're going to start this. Really put some thought into it. Really put some training into it. Really put a formalized procedure into it rather than just doing this on a fly because, well, I heard this podcast and I'm just going to do it now. Correct?
That's right.
All right,
That's right.
perfect. Perfect. I love it. This is great stuff. So would you say, and it's something that you said earlier in your last answer, would you say that if you're there and you're able to answer questions and solve problems, now all of a sudden you're converting, if done right, you're kind of becoming now the trusted advisor, product advisor, not, the whole project obviously, but at least you're the trusted advisor now. What are your thoughts there, and do you think that's a good place to be?
It definitely is a good place to be, assuming you're at your ideal client, right? So, assuming you know who your ideal clients are, your ideal projects for your product and your product segment. If you're there, yeah, that's exactly what you want to do because they'll consider you for other projects without you even with doing any work. Once you're established, once they have your trust, you're in like Flynn, as they say.
There you go. So,
Yeah.
do you have any examples where that's happened, where you've seen that happen?
Yes. Yes, I have lots of examples. And another cool thing that happens, and this is anecdotal too. You show up and you strike up a conversation with one of the installers or maybe the QC person at the job site, and you ask them, "Hey, where are you guys going next?" And a lot of times they're setting up for a project that's not even in like Dodge Reports or Construct Connect, or it's not anywhere. Like nobody really knows about it. So you get leads on projects that maybe nobody else really knows about. So yeah, that's all of the sort of tips that I've mentioned are anecdotal from my experience over the years, for sure.
So you're building that relationship, and one day, just because you're the trusted advisor, now all of a sudden you're getting that insider information that nobody else has. And I think, well, it definitely demonstrates the value right there, obtaining a job or even consideration that nobody else knows about. This is fantastic. Such good advice. Like I said, I mean, literally boots on the ground, that this is just great
Yeah.
tactical advice that we can use. So, all right, tell me something about a commonly held belief in your field that you just passionately disagree with. And let's get the energy going again, okay? No.
Well, a commonly held belief is that it's a numbers game. And so cold calling, prospecting, you got to spend hours on the phone, you got to put in the time, you got to do your CEUs and I just think I'm an 80/20 believer. I don't know if do you know the 80/20 rule, the 80/20 principle? Yeah, I'm an
Absolutely.
80/20 principle person all the way. And so I always want to get at those top 20% of the customers that are going to bring in 80% of the revenue, and I just pour all my energy into those activities, customers, situations, cities, markets, you name it. That I always try to find that 20%. And to me, it's a numbers game, but it's not that kind of a numbers game. It's an 80/20 numbers game.
It's quality over quantity, really. When people say the numbers game, the typical advice, they're thinking, oh, I just have to make 50 cold calls and eventually it'll come out. Whereas you're saying, well, the numbers game here is what are my high value activities that I can do? And just from our conversation here, some of those high value activities are the job site visits, becoming a trusted advisor, getting that internal insider information. You can't. That's not a numbers game because there's no numbers to put on it if nobody knows about it. So, I love that.
Yeah.
That is great. Great advice there. Fantastic. So, from the perspective of a sales rep, how do you feel about most building material manufacturers' websites?
Gosh, they run the gamut. And these days, I feel like we're getting better and better at websites. Like even in the last 2 years, people have gotten better because SEO algorithms have gotten better. And we're people like Mark Mitchell, right? Like he's kind of educating all of us. Like architects don't want to talk to you. They don't architects don't want you to cold call them. Architects like make up fake emails so that you won't email them. So they're going to find you when they need you. So your SEO has to be up to par, and you've got to attract them with those right phrases and those right words, right, and questions. So I think that the really smart manufacturers are doing that already. We're certainly doing that at Stowe for our Rainscreen system, and I think that the top sellers and the top materials in the US right now have phenomenal websites. I think that has a lot to do with your sales. So pay attention to your website for sure.
Absolutely. It's more than just, oh, it's a nice to have. Oh, we have it, And I think the original perspective years ago was just, well, if I just put it up on the web, it's just like putting an open sign up on my store. And it's so much more than that. And you're right. People like Mark Mitchell, who will be back on our show later next month, and you even mentioned architects. Ben Glunz was on our last episode, and he was actually very passionate about salespeople calling on, driving 45 minutes just to deliver a sample and pepper the poor architect with questions. So I want to that kind of leads into my next question. What 2 specific things could manufacturers do to make you, in kind of a sales role, happier with them?
Well, so going back to that last comment, for my top 2 or 3 ideal architects, I will drive 45 minutes to deliver a sample if I know they're going to see my face. Because as much as architects hate you and think you're annoying, you're going to be top of mind if you dropped off a sample at the last minute for a meeting that they had, because it rolls downhill, right? Like they have a meeting tomorrow and they're not ready for it and they needed your samples, and like they're used to Amazon Prime timelines and lead times, and it's like, well, dude, I can't send you a sample by tomorrow at 10 for your client meeting, so don't worry, I'll drop it off to you. If you're my top 3, right? Like I'm not going to do that for just any architect, but if it's one of your top accounts or top potential accounts, by all means do it. I don't care if they don't want to see your face. Doing something like that is definitely pays off. I could speak from experience. But going back to your other question, I think the activities that pay off the most are really understanding who your top 20% of your clients are. And that takes work, that takes time, but it's a time that's very well invested, because once you've got that, and then if you kind of regularly revisit and pivot, that pays off, because that's where you concentrate all of your efforts. So to me, having that, and to kind of backtrack a little bit, I have a sales playbook. I work with that just because I want to have everything in front of me, and my sales playbook's over there, so I can't show it to you. But yeah, like understanding your goals, seeing your numbers, and having a clear picture of what you're doing. Like what you said, what's not measured is not managed. So if you have all of your numbers in front of you and you understand who the top people you need to go after, it's very easy for you to tweak and pivot and make changes so that you can meet those numbers and you're exceeding those numbers. So to me, those are the most important things that you can do.
I love that your sales playbook, even though it's on the other side of the room, it is very close to you. So I think you exemplify exactly, not even across the room. I see you observing it right there. It's probably on like another table.
Right,
it's very close. It's very close by. But that exemplifies exactly what you were saying. To understand your numbers, to review the numbers, rather than guesstimate, understand what you're actually doing. Because if you don't understand those high level activities and what they're producing from a number perspective, how do you know that they're high level activities? So I love that it's right there. You're like, I just want to reach out and grab it. It's right there. So That is terrific. Great advice there. I love those two things. Those are really, really important. And again, plenty of rewind moments here, folks. So if you're not catching it all live, you can certainly check it out on our podcast and, of course, on YouTube and enjoy all of this and see all the and actually watch Carolina see her sales playbook from across the room. So, it's just moments like that makes live shows that exciting. So next question, what's a recent activity that you've implemented that has brought about some surprising results that you're pretty proud of?
Actually, yoga has nothing to do with building material sales. But I've always loved yoga, and when I first had my kids, when they were babies, I loved using yoga to recover. And recover my body, etc. And I've recently just got back into it, and I think I'm on a 45-day streak right now. And I found this really cool couple that teaches it online, and it's very meditative, as of course, and it's a physical challenge as well. And it's kind of like it's like an 80-20 activity, because it gives me that meditative. It helps me to relax. It helps me to unwind, but it also is building strength, etc. So I'm really enjoying it.
I think that is a surprising answer, because most people, they go towards the business side. But I think based on what you're saying, a lot of what you do outside of this yoga, building the strength, having time to just think, to process, to, self-care, that helps what you're doing in your 9 to 5, so to speak. Surprising, actually a very surprising answer, but I love where you went with that. That is terrific. Really good to know. So those of you that are listening, hey, give yoga a try. Okay, there's plenty of apps out there, and I'm sure you can. There was a couple that you said they're on YouTube. Was that it? Is that where you find them?
It's called Boho Beautiful. Okay. And they're on remote places all over the world. Every class is different. There's free ones on YouTube that are short, and then they have like a membership, which is really cheap. It's like $11.99 a month for the longer sessions.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Hopefully you'll get a T-shirt for that one. Some more swag, right? You're just promoting all the good things. This is like an Oprah show, This is good, and these are all Carolina's favorite things. So This is fantastic. This is great advice, and it sounds to me like you get to travel the world a little bit with this yoga experience. So that seems pretty cool as well.
Yeah, that's a bonus.
So last question for you. And you have some great little nuggets of wisdom here, but I want you to don't reiterate this. Don't reiterate anything that you said before. But what is, so dig deep now, okay? What is the best advice that you've ever received?
The best advice, I think the best advice that I've ever received goes back to perspective. This won't matter in 100 years. So whatever it is that you're worried about, concerned with, that's stressing you out, that whatever, like keeping you up at night, 100 years from now, it's not going to matter. So, and to I go back to that. I think it's a stoic
take that
thing.
Yoga class, people.
I think, I think it's a stoic principle. But that always comes back every time I'm super worried about something, or things aren't working out. Or I think, the world's going to end or whatever, like something terrible is happening. Well, you know what, 25 years from now, it's not even 100, sometimes 25 years from now, just step back.
5 years. I actually do that with my kids. I have 3 teenagers. So I always say, okay, in 5 minutes, is this going to matter? In 5 days, will this matter? 5 weeks? And in 5 years. And usually when you get that 5-year perspective, especially when you got the high school drama going on, when you get that 5-year perspective, it's, it's not that big of a deal. So I absolutely can connect with that advice. Love stoicism. I read a lot of Ryan Holiday, so I'm with you there. And of course, I use that same kind of advice with my kids. So great advice for everyone. Really love this. This is a great show. Thank you so much for being on today's show. I appreciate it. I know you got to run to somewhere else, so I will let you go, but I'm going to let the audience know a couple of programming notes. Where can we get in touch with you, Carolina?
Well, you know what? I mentioned everyone else's stuff, but I failed to mention I have a training class on Teachable on how to conduct job site visits for building product manufacturer sales reps. It's very specific to salespeople. So if you're looking to get some training on how to go to job sites and not screw up and not look dumb, and how to get the most out of them and get yourself feet into projects, go to that my Teachable page. It's howtojobsite.teachable.com, or you can get a link directly to it from howtojobsite.com. So forgot to
That's
make that
perfect.
plug.
No, hey, that's why I love that one to you. So no, that's perfect. And what about, so if I'm in charge of a sales team, if I'm a sales manager, can I get group discounts, or is it, how does that work and
Definitely.
everything? So you could do a training for an
Sure.
entire team, something like that.
Yeah, so I offered it live earlier this summer, where I offered coaching with the course, but but that's more expensive. If you can definitely do it self-paced. If you have a group that you want to take it with, by all means, take advantage of that. Just send me an email or reach out on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to work with you on group discounts for sure.
Perfect. So you like to hang out on LinkedIn. So that's where we're going to communicate with you. Or your website again is?
How to job site, HOWTOJOBSITE.com.
Perfect. Awesome. Carolina, it was great having you here. I've learned so much today, between yoga
Thank you,
and
Will.
Formula One racing to how to be on job sites. This has been a fantastic show. Thank you so much. A lot of fun. Great meeting you. And I hope to talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, just another thank you to Carolina for being here. I do have a couple of programming notes for you, but you've been watching and you've been listening to the role of construction job site visits for successful building product sales. And so, if you're a building material manufacturer out there, I hope you were listening, and I hope you can get a lot of great actionable advice out of today's episode, because, man, these are the kind of episodes I really like, because you could really take this advice that Carolina offered and you can just apply it tomorrow afternoon if done right. So please make sure you check out, if you want the education, she just mentioned her website, howtojobsite.com. Please check out her information there. So a couple of programming notes here. Our next episode will be on October 19th. So October, we're actually going to be at Inbound. That'll be the second week. Usually we're live every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. So we're actually going to be in Inbound this year in October. So we're kind of making the way for the fourth week. We're going to have one episode in October, and that's going to bring back, as you can see here, that's going to bring back the one, the only Mark Mitchell. And of course, Carolina mentioned him before. We're bringing him back, and Mark always brings his A game, and he is such a generous person with his time and his intellect. And he's actually got a live, that's right, live in person and online Wizard Summit coming up in December. So building material manufacturers, you don't want to miss out on this episode on October 19th. So like I said, Mark always brings his A game, so please join us there for this episode right here live. And if you don't know when we're going to be live, hey, just follow us, Manobite, on LinkedIn, Facebook, on Twitter, and of course on Instagram. All the places, you know what to do. Follow us there. So thank you. Thank you to everyone who was watching today. And for those of you that are watching this maybe on YouTube in the future, or listening to this on a podcast in the future, we just thank you for watching and thank you for listening. Get in touch with us if you have any questions or concerns, and we'll certainly get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And until next time, whatever life unboxes for you, may it be great.